So page 2 is all about section 5.5. This is going to be on the no calculator section, okay? So when you're solving each equation, what you want to do, 1 through 4, is we are going to multiply by the LCD. Or you could also get the LCD for each one. That would be fine. You can choose. So if I multiply both sides by the LCD, just make sure on this side you distribute the x. So when you do that, x times x is x squared, and then here, x and x will cancel, so this will just be x squared minus 6, and then it's going to equal 5x. Now this one's special because you have x squared and x. This is where you want to move everything to one side so that you can do what?
Factor.
Yay! Okay, so we are going to factor. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 6 but add to negative 5. And because it's negative, you have 1 plus and 1 minus. So you should have positive 6 and negative 1. And then when you set each one equal to 0. Oh, thank you. Positive 1, negative 6. Yeah, because negative 5, not the positive 5. So you have x plus 1 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. So then x equals negative 1. Or x equals 6. Now, with these, you want to watch out for what type of solutions. Great. And then, do you guys remember the quick check you can do to see if it's extraneous? Yeah, your LCD. So your LCD in this case is x, right? So we know that the LCD can't be 0, so x can't be 0. So if neither of those are 0, you are good. Okay? Now, for number 2, what's the LCD?
4x.
Good. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4x. Now, when you do that, here, the 4's are going to cancel, and you have 15x. On this side, make sure you distribute. This is 4x times 6 over x plus 3 times 4x is 12x. So here, the x's cancel. The reason why I didn't cancel it out there is because I don't want you to forget that this one does need the x on it. So you have 15x equals 6 times 4 is 24 plus 12x, and then we're just going to solve. Now, this time we don't have to get everything on the same side because what don't you have? The last time we got everything to one side because there was that x squared and the x term. Okay, so then let's do our check. So we know the LCD can't be 0, so 4x can't be 0. So if I solve for x, I'll get the x can't be 0, and that is not 0, so we are good. Okay, and then for 3, the LCD is x again. So I'm going to multiply both sides by x. So I have x squared equals 3 plus 2x. So this is another one where you want to get everything to one side. I would move everything over to the x squared side because I like to keep my x squared positive. Okay, so it has to multiply to negative 3, add to negative 2. Minus 3 and plus 1. So negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative times a positive is negative 3. So then x equals 3 or x equals negative 1. What can't x be in this situation? Great. Okay, so the LCD is x. So x can't be 0, so we're good. Alright, number 4, you have to factor this first. This is the difference of two squares. So x plus 2 times x minus 2 is the, x plus 2 times x minus 2 is the denominator here. What do I have to multiply this by to get the same denominator? Okay, x plus 2 over itself. And then once the denominators are equal, what do we know? Yeah, the numerators are also equal. So when I set this up, I can just do 4 equals 1 times anything is itself. And I just have x equals 2. Okay, and it's fine to go from this to this. You just have to show what your step is here. Okay, now, again, we have to take the LCD, because that can't be 0. So the LCD is x plus 2 times x minus 2. So what are the two things x can't be? Yeah, 2 and negative 2. So see how that falls in that category? So what you would write on the line is no solution. You could also plug this back in. When you plug it back in, you get 2 minus 2. You'd have 0 in the denominator. You can't have 0 in the denominator. So this is what we call extraneous. Okay, so x cannot be 2 because that would make the denominator 0, and you can't divide by 0. Okay, now for this step where you're solving the inequalities, like I said, you have to make sure you do the positive case and the negative case. And the whole reason why is because with inequalities, to solve this, I'm going to have to multiply. And why is that tricky with an inequality? Exactly. You multiply by a negative, the sign's going to flip. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the positive case, which is where we solve. So what do I want to multiply both sides by here? For this one, for the first one. You always multiply by what? Denominator. Which is nice because on this side it cancels. And then I have 4x plus 16. I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. I have negative 4 is less than or equal to 4x. Now, when you're dividing here, you're dividing by positive 4, so you don't have to flip the sign. Okay, so this is part of your answer. Then the next part, oh, thank you. These are good today. Okay, so x is greater than or equal to negative 1. I'm going to write it like this. Okay, so that's what we got from the first step. The second step is taking that LCD, and because we are doing the positive case, it's greater than 0. So if x plus 4 is greater than 0, then x is greater than negative 4. Then what do we do in the third step? We find where they, yes, where they overlap. So you can draw a number line, or I know some of you are good at the reasoning without it. Either one is fine. So the negative 4, if x is greater than negative 4, on my number line I would have an open circle going to the right. This is x is greater than or equal to negative 1. And then where they overlap is your solution for the case. Okay, so they overlap at x is greater than or equal to negative 1. So that's part of your solution. Okay, the second part is the negative case. And don't we love the negative case once we've done all the work for the positive case? Because what's the only thing we have to do? Yeah, flip the signs. So this would be x is less than or equal to negative 1. This would be x is less than negative 4. And then we just find where they overlap. So when you're doing your number line, make sure you put the numbers in the proper order. So this would be less than or equal to negative 1. This is going to be less than negative 4. Okay, and then so x is less than negative 4 is the answer for that part of the solution. Your final solution is going to be the combination of those two. So x is less than negative 4, or x is greater than or equal to negative 1. This is your overall solution. Okay? The reason why we have to connect those with an or is they can't happen at the same time. Now that's only one of the cases. Okay? So there's different cases for these different problems. So for number 10, first thing we're going to do, you can multiply both sides by x plus 3. And I'm going to do the positive case. Okay, so I have 7 is less than negative 5x minus 15. Add 15 to both sides, you'll get 22. Now here, this is where you need to be careful. This is so easy to forget, but you're dividing by a negative, right? So what does that mean? Yep, so I'm going to flip the sign like this. Okay, so it's negative 22 over 5 is greater than x, and I like to write it like this with the x going first. Okay, and then the second step is taking that LCD, which is x plus 3, and setting it greater than 0, so x is greater than negative 3. And then I have to find where those two overlap. I'll do here. So, bless you, negative 22 over 5. How many times does 5 go into 22? 4. So this is 4 with 2 remaining. That's just going to help you put it on your number line. So negative 22 fifths goes first. Negative 3 goes second. This is greater than negative 3. This is less than negative 22 over 5. If there's no overlap, what does that mean? Yeah, so there's no solution for this case. If there's no solution for the positive case, then there should be a solution for the negative case. So for my negative case, again, we're just going to flip it. So this is x is greater than negative 22 fifths. This is x is less than negative 3. And if you've been practicing these, we should already know what happens, right? What's going to happen with these arrows. One's going to the right, the other one's going to the left. And the overlap is going to be in between them. So then do we remember how to write that as a solution? So negative 22 over 5 is less than x, which is less than negative 3. There's no equal to in this one, okay? And that's because this one doesn't have an equal to. Okay, and then number 11. So again, we'll start with the positive case. Okay, so when you multiply both sides by the x minus 2, those will cancel. You'll get x is greater than 9x minus 18. This is another one where if you move all the x's over, you do get a negative. And when you get a negative, you have to flip the sign. And then I'm just going to reduce. So what goes into 18 and 8? 2, right? So this would be 9 over 4. Okay, did some of you write it as a fraction? Like 2 and 1/4, because you could do that. 2 and 1/4 is fine. Okay, and then, so this is the first part. The second part is x minus 2 is greater than 0, so x is greater than 2, and then we just have to find where they overlap. Okay, so this is obviously bigger than 2, because 8 divided by 4 is 2. So you have 2 and then 9/4. Then you have an open circle greater than 2. And then you have an open circle here, less than. And then your overlap is in between. So if it's in between those two, it's going to be 2 is less than x. Because see how you have the open circle here? And then less than or equal, or sorry, they're both less than. Okay, and that is going to be less than 9 over 4. So 2 is less than x, which is less than 9 over 4. Okay, and then in the negative case, what should happen here based on our patterns? There should be no solution. Good. Okay, so you have 2, 9 over 4, x is greater than, x is less than, so there's no solution there, which means this is your overall solution. All right, and then 12, when you multiply each side by x minus 5, you get 2x is greater than or equal to 3x minus 15. This is another one where you have to be careful of the negatives. How are we doing at remembering to switch if it's negative? Yeah. That might be something like when you get the second part of your quiz, which is Tuesday, might be just a little note you want to put at the top. Sometimes that helps me. And then if you have x minus 5 is greater than 0, you know x is greater than 5. So let's find the overlap. So 5 and 15, this is less than or equal to 15. This is greater than 5. And then again, when you have done this as many times as we have today, you start to really notice those patterns, right? You know what's going to come. Okay, and then let's look at the negative case. So x is greater than or equal to 15, x is less than 5. Yep, so no solution there, which means that is your final solution. Alright, how are we feeling about that set? Pretty good? Alright. This last one you could use your calculator, and they tell you that the time required is given by this equation, where t is the time, d is the distance in miles, and r is the average speed. And then they give you the time, the 6.2 hours. Okay, it's located 100 miles, so that's your distance. You have to find the average speed, which is the r. So if you set this up, t equals 4 plus d over r. It's going to be 6.2 is your time, equals 4 plus 100 over r. So to solve for r, you're just going to subtract 4 from both sides. And then once you get here, there's so many different ways you can do this. What did you guys do? You could set up a proportion. You could multiply both sides by r and then divide by 2.2, okay, which is the same thing as setting up the proportion, right? Okay, and this is one where I said you could use your calculator on that, so it would be 100 divided by 2.2. Okay, so this is about 45.5. This would be about 45.5 miles per hour. Either is fine if it doesn't say. So if you put 0.45, that's fine. Sure, and then be about 45. Yeah, good. All right, so page 3 is what is due Monday by 7:40.